Welcome to our movie recap channel, your ultimate destination for in-depth and engaging movie summaries, whether you're looking to catch up on the latest blockbusters or revisit classic films.
The film starts in a rich, green timberland, where a gathering of poachers catches a few chimpanzees for creature testing. The scene then shifts to Gen SYS, a leading biotech organization focused on hereditary therapies. Will Rodman, a drug scientist at the organization, tests his new viral-based medication, AIZ-112, on chimpanzees.
He is hoping to find a remedy for Alzheimer's.
This medication is given to a female chimp named Bright Eyes, who stunningly solves a puzzle in only 20 moves. Excited by the success of his research, Will races to his boss, Jacobs. He emphasizes that after nearly 5 years of dedicated work on the drug, he now has sufficient data to advance to human testing. Jacobs is also euphoric about the news, so he allows Will to present his findings to the board for approval. The next day, Will delivers a presentation on his research regarding AIZ-112. He describes the drug as a gene therapy that allows the brain to generate new cells for self-repair, which could be a promising remedy for Alzheimer's disease. Its only side effect is the presence of harmless green flecks in the eyes. Will assures the board members that they will have the opportunity to witness the exceptional intelligence of the chimpanzee involved in their research. Elsewhere, a caretaker approaches Bright Eyes in her enclosure to prepare her for the presentation, but she suddenly becomes aggressive and attacks him. This prompts another caretaker named Franklin to arrive at the scene. The two then cautiously try to lure her out of the enclosure using a control rod. However, this only agitates Bright Eyes more, and she manages to run out of the enclosure. She then goes on a rampage throughout the facility before crashing through the glass window of the meeting room. The board members are shocked to see her in this state, but before Will can react, the poor chimp is shot and killed. In the aftermath, the board of directors rejects Will's proposal to move forward with human trials. Jacobs believes that Bright Eyes' aggression was a result of the drug's side effects, so he orders all the remaining chimps to be euthanized. Franklin begs him not to do so, but the boss refuses as he only cares about business. Later on, Franklin shows Will an infant male chimp he found inside Bright Eyes' enclosure, making them realize that she was merely being protective of her child. Franklin says he doesn't have the heart to put down the little one, so he asks Will to take care of him. The latter is initially reluctant to bear such a big responsibility, but after some urging, he agrees. Will then brings the baby home and introduces him to his father, Charles. They quickly become fond of him and name him Caesar. It is then revealed that Charles is suffering from Alzheimer's and requires constant supervision. He is the main reason why Will is desperate to find a cure for the disease. "It's okay, father. This monkey will fix everything. Won't you, Caesar?" The next day, in the kitchen, Caesar amazingly takes the milk container and feeds himself. This leaves both the father and son astonished, considering the chimp is only 2 days old. Will then decides to work from home to care for both his father and the baby chimp. He also begins remodeling the house so the primate can move freely. After a few weeks of hard work, an entire room is designed for Caesar, comprising platforms, ropes, and climbing structures, as well as a hidden stash of Playboy magazines. Over time, Caesar begins to show remarkable signs of intelligence. Will trains him in sign language and regularly records his progress. By the age of 2, Caesar impressively solves puzzles designed for children aged 8. As he turns 3, his cognitive abilities surpass those of children his age. Will hypothesizes that Caesar inherited the AIZ-112 gene from his mother, as his eyes also have the same green flecks. Meanwhile, Charles' health deteriorates as his Alzheimer's worsens. Unable to see him suffer, Will take several vials of the AIZ-112 drug from Gen SYS. He then administers a dose to his father, hoping it will ease his suffering, even if it also makes him start throwing crap, shockingly. The following day, Charles appears to be revived, and he is playing the piano flawlessly. The sight makes Will very emotional as his medication has finally worked on humans. Meanwhile, Caesar gets envious when he notices the neighboring kids playing outside freely. When no one is watching, he gets out through an open window to join them. Tragically, one of the girls spots him and becomes visibly scared. Her furious dad, Hunsaker, then shows up with a baseball bat and starts attacking Caesar. The unfortunate primate can only scream for help as he is too young to defend himself, but Will arrives just in time and saves him from any serious harm. He then takes Caesar to the zoo where the vet, Caroline, tends to his injuries. She is flabbergasted by Caesar's intelligence as he communicates through sign language.
He even signs that Will should take Caroline out for dinner, making them both laugh.
Caesar then signs that they should get themselves a rope swing and go to Bone Town, and Will says, Now, I'm already in enough trouble for such things." The next day, Caroline visits their home and is impressed by the environment that Will has created. However, she advises him that Caesar will eventually grow into a large, strong creature with potential danger. She then suggests taking him to an open space for a change of scenery.
Will likes the idea, so he drives all of them across the Golden Gate Bridge to the Redwood Forest.
When they arrive there, Caesar starts climbing the trees, something he is doing for the first time. He thoroughly enjoys the experience, and the humans also seem happy for him. The scene then shifts to 5 years later.
Caesar has grown into an adult chimpanzee and has started to question his place in the world.
One day, while returning from the Redwood Forest, Will senses that something is bothering Caesar and asks him about it. Caesar wants to know about his parents, so Will drives him to Gen Sys.
He then honestly reveals that Caesar's mother had been given a drug that enhanced her intelligence, which was then passed on to him. Unfortunately, she died because of this, so Will adopted him.
The revelation devastates Caesar, as he had been kept in the dark about his true origins for such a long time. The next day, he is still upset about his mother's death and his confusing identity.
While eating, he sees Charles using the wrong side of a fork to eat, so he gently corrects it.
Seeing this, Will thinks that his father's illness is resurfacing. He later conducts a few tests at Gen Sys and discovers that Charles's immune system has developed antibodies and become resistant to the AIZ-11 drug. This leaves Will in pure shock as he realizes his father doesn't have much time left.
Meanwhile, Charles wanders just outside the house and gets into Hunsaker's parked car in his confused state. He tries to drive but accidentally ends up colliding with other vehicles.
When Hunsaker learns of this, he angrily shows up and yanks Charles out of the car. Caesar observes everything from his window, becoming increasingly aggressive.
When he can't bear the sight any longer, he rushes out of the house and brutally attacks Hunsaker. The unfortunate man tries to flee, but Caesar knocks him down and bites off one of his fingers.
He soon realizes what he has done, but it's too late as several neighbors have witnessed the incident. In the fallout, Caesar is taken to a primate sanctuary, which is run by a dubious-looking man named John Landon.
Will is a bit worried as his son has never been away from home, but John is confident that Caesar will thrive in the company of other chimpanzees. With this assurance, Will reluctantly says goodbye to Caesar, promising to be back soon.
This is reminiscent of when Ash let Pikachu go free in the forest, a scene that made me cry so hard when I was a kid that I never really recovered. On the other hand, Charles's health continues to decline as his immune system rejects AIZ-112. Desperate for a cure, Will approaches Jacobs and offers details of the trial involving his father.
He explains that the drug has the potential to enhance cognitive ability, yet its effects on the disease are not lasting.
Consequently, he has modified the virus strain to be more potent and effective. Jacobs is impressed by the research, so he grants permission to proceed with animal trials at the facility.
"You just violated so many regulations. Here's your prize." Back at the sanctuary, Caesar struggles to adjust to the new environment.
The overseer, Dodge, also gives him trouble by continuously tormenting him. One day,
Caesar nervously approaches the other primates when he is released into the common play area. However, Rocket, the alpha gorilla, tears off his clothes to assert dominance. We get stripped here, and then brutally attacks him. Meanwhile, Gen Sys acquires more primates from the sanctuary for testing the new and improved AIZ-113.
Will takes charge of the project and chooses a chimpanzee named Koba as his first subject.
That night, he takes the new medication from the lab and brings it home to treat his father. However, Charles refuses the treatment and sadly dies in his sleep.
At the sanctuary, Caesar befriends a female orangutan named Morris.
The two quickly bond over the fact that they both know sign language. Later that evening, Dodge brings a few friends into the sanctuary and leads them to the enclosure section.
One of the friends taunts Caesar, but he becomes enraged and grabs him by the throat.
"Let's see you taunt me now, you." He then cleverly takes his pocket knife before releasing him. Later, Caesar creates a small weapon using sticks and the stolen knife. He then opens his enclosure to enter the common play area.
After this, he frees a large gorilla named Beck from his enclosure, earning his trust.
For the next part of his plan,
Caesar lures Rocket out into the common play area and quickly knocks him down. When the arrogant chimp sees Buck and Caesar united, he immediately surrenders and kneels to Caesar, acknowledging him as the new alpha of the sanctuary.
Meanwhile, Franklin begins to experience nosebleeds after accidentally being exposed to AIZ-113 during testing.
He rushes to warn Will at his home but can't reach him.
As Franklin leaves, he encounters Hunsaker and accidentally sneezes on him, transmitting the virus.
This whole town will hurl Pyro in no time. Caesar observes the entrance code for the gate and uses it to escape from the sanctuary. That night, he goes straight home and finds Will sleeping with Caroline.
Well done, Will, but instead of waking him, he opens the refrigerator and grabs several canisters of the AIZ-113 drug.
After this, Caesar takes them back to the sanctuary and releases the gas, intending to enhance the cognitive abilities of all the other primates. The next day, John sees the primates gathered for a discussion, but they quickly disperse after seeing him.
Later, all the primates return to their enclosures except for Caesar.
Dodd approaches him in the common area and tries to force him back inside using a stun gun.
However, Caesar shouts, "No," and knocks him unconscious before dragging him into the enclosure section. He then frees the other gorillas from their enclosures and riles them up. Hearing the commotion, another caretaker rushes to intervene, but the gorillas brutally attack him. However, Caesar stops his companions and keeps the man in an enclosure out of kindness. He then goes to confront Dodge and uses a fire hose to spray him. Tragically, the water interacts with Dodge's stun gun, causing him to die by electrocution.
After this, the enraged chimps escape from the sanctuary and head towards the city. The next morning, Will drives to the sanctuary only to find it in complete ruins. All the gorillas are missing, and he finds empty AIZ-113 canisters in the enclosure sections.
Meanwhile, the wild chimps are divided into two groups.
The first, led by Buck, heads to the zoo to release the confined chimps, while Caesar leads the other group to attack Gen SYS. In the following scene, when Jacobs arrives at Gen SYS, he is shocked to find himself surrounded by many primates. They have also freed the other chimps, which were used as AIZ-113 test subjects. Terrified, Jacobs calls the police and quickly boards a police helicopter to escape.
Eventually, the two groups of primates reunite and form one large collective.
Primate Nation, baby, as they wreak havoc throughout the city. The military and special officers are dispatched by the government. Will realizes that Caesar is leading the group towards the Redwood Forest, so he rushes to confront him.
Meanwhile, the Golden Gate Bridge, which connects the city to the forest, is heavily blockaded with cops.
They have been ordered to eliminate the rampaging primates on site. However, Caesar once again shows his remarkable intelligence by instructing his companions to divide.
One group climbs the suspension cables, while another swings from under the structure to avoid the blockade. Amidst this, Jacob spots Caesar as the leader of the group and orders the soldiers to kill him.
But when they open fire, Buck leaps high, blocking all the shots.
He then bravely takes down the helicopter before succumbing to his injuries.
As the chopper crashes to the ground, Jacobs finds himself desperately clinging to the edge.
He begs Caesar for help, but Caesar instead lets Cobra take matters into his own hands.
Cobra then pushes the helicopter over the bridge, causing Jacobs to plunge into the ocean below.
Following this, the chimps make their way into the Redwood Forest, returning to their natural habitat. Will somehow manages to get past the blockade and arrives at the forest. He finally reunites with his long-lost son and asks him to come home.
However, Caesar, who can now speak like a human, replies, "I am home." This shocks Will, but he also understands that his favorite primate no longer wants to remain confined inside a home.
Thus, he gives Caesar his blessing to start his own clan here in the forest.
In the final scene, we see Hunsaker starting his shift as a pilot at the San Francisco International Airport.
Before boarding the plane, he notices his nose bleeding but quickly dismisses it. The film concludes as the flight board shows several destinations, indicating that the AIZ-113 virus is about to spread worldwide.